My literacy strategy that I chose to focus on is literacy centers. So why should this strategy be used? So literacy centers allow for students to have some control and choice over their learning. They're very easy to adjust to target different skills for different students. Doing centers keeps students engaged and excited about reading and learning. It encourages student collaboration, and these centers are a good way to reinforce a new concept or skill that has been learned. How can this strategy be used? So in order for this strategy to work, clear expectations for students' work and their behavior need to be laid out. And I personally think that if you're going to use centers throughout your classroom, it should be something that's set up at the beginning of the year, but I'll get into that later. And then along with that, clear and measurable objectives need to be set for each station in order to monitor the students' progress. So basically students need to understand what is expected of them at every station, what they should be accomplishing, how they should be working, if they should be working by themselves, if they can work with a partner, their behavior expectations needs to be laid out, as well as what the objective is that they're working on. Students can work independently at literacy centers or collaboratively as a group of students. It honestly just depends what the teacher wants and what the assignment is that they're working on. Maybe in some centers they work independently, and then a different center they work as a group. It would just depend on the activity. Teachers need to model the procedure for how to use the materials at each station, and it's beneficial to select materials that students are used to working with during full group instruction, so that it's not something that the students are seeing for the first time and they're really confused about how to use it. And if it is something that they're using for the first time or something they haven't used in a while, it's very important that the teacher demos how to use it before releasing them off to the station, because if not, they're going to be confused and a million students are just going to be coming up to you with questions. So okay. When should this strategy be used? So, like I said before, this strategy should not be used to introduce a new skill, but should be used for students to practice learned skills. So, there shouldn't really be a center that's focusing on something that they didn't learn how to do already, because if they don't know how to do it, they can't teach it to themselves. It needs to be something that has already been taught to them, and now they're just practicing how to do it. And these centers can be set up to support guided reading really well. So a teacher can explain all the centers, send students off in their groups, and while students are working in their center groups, the teacher can simultaneously pull a group of students for guided reading. And if the learning centers are being used, I think setting them up at the beginning of the year is key to success. It needs to be a daily routine that students know and are used to doing. If you just try to randomly implement it one day, it's not going to be successful, and the students are going to be confused, and it's probably just going to be very chaotic. But if it's something that's set up as a routine from the beginning of the year, it'll make things flow much smoother, and students will already know what's expected of them. So how you can differentiate using this strategy. So using literacy centers is, I feel the easiest way to be able to differentiate students' instruction, because students can be placed in a group based on their reading level and ability, and students could be placed in homogeneous groups and heterogeneous groups just depending on what the skill is that they're working on. Sometimes you might want a mix of students that are really strong and maybe not as strong together, or sometimes you might want students who are on the same level working together. It just really depends. But each center has a different activity that targets a different objective. The teacher is able to choose who participates in what center. So if a teacher knows students are really struggling with sight words, maybe they send them to the sight word center that day first, or if they're struggling with something else, they can send them to a different center. So the teacher can kind of design the centers in mind with like what the students need more practice with, and that's where they can choose to send them. The centers can also include like different aspects for each type of learner. So for example, like including manipulatives for kinesthetic learners. And the centers can also be developed based off like students' interests as well. So like if you know a student really likes like Minecraft or like Roblox, you can maybe like incorporate that into the activity they're going to be doing, because it'll keep them more engaged and interested in what they're doing. And then how can technology be integrated with this strategy? So using a resource like Epic that reads books aloud to students, or any other website like that, that's a great one, because students can sit there with their headphones on and the book can be read aloud to them. Utilizing a smart board to do like sight word work, so that you could do like a drag the sight word to the corresponding picture. Using like IXL or other online websites for like reading and phonics games. And a lot of these websites, especially like IXL, you can actually like track like students' progress as well, and you can use that data to inform your instruction. And then also like another technology that I thought was interesting is like students could write their own story and then use a tool such as like screencasting, which is what I'm doing right now, to record them like reading the book aloud, and then it could be like played for the class at another time. It's just another way just to use like integrate a technology component into it. Okay, and then some different examples of literacy centers. So this one's like a letter hunt sensory bin. So basically there'd be different like letters in a bin with some sort of like, this looks like foam almost, I don't know, different sensory things. Sensory plays are like really big right now, I feel like. So basically students sort through the sensory bins, and when they find the letter, they can color in on their corresponding worksheet, and this helps students develop letter recognition. So this is really good with like when students are first learning how to read and they're like learning all of their letters. They can find the letter, for example, like I see in the picture, it says C, so they can say, you know, it out loud, like C, cat, k, and then color in on their sheet. Another example that I liked was read it and keep it. So basically, there's 6 different piles of sight words, and they all are under a different number on a die through 1 through 6. So students take turns rolling the die. So if they got like a 4, for example, they would pick up the first card that's in the 4 pile, and if they know the word and can say it out loud, they get to keep that card, or if they don't know it, they put it back into the deck, and they just keep going and playing. And this is a great way to help them with their sight words, and it's fun for them because it's a game, and yeah, and whoever wins, whoever's the most cards wins, so it'll be like competitive for them and it'll keep them engaged. Next slide, I don't know why this keeps freezing. Okay, the next idea that I really like is building compound words with like blocks. So you give students blocks with words on them, and they can put 2 different blocks together to make a compound word. So for example, in this picture it says like waterfall, rainbow, lighthouse. But like I already see like the one, it could be like sunlight they could do, hairbrush, sunflower, different words. So they could come up with all different compound words with the blocks, and they could write them down on a sheet to show you like what words they put together. And along with that, after they make like, if you give them a certain number, like you have to find 10 compound words, after they do like their 10, they could also come up with like fake compound words just to like add a sense of like fun into it. Students, you know, like to come up with silly words sometimes, so that would be like an incentive. Like once you can get your 10 words written, you can come up with whatever words. It can be like a no-nonsense word that doesn't actually like mean anything. And the last example I have on here is using props to retell a story. So this helps support reading comprehension because students can use the different materials to help retell what happened in the story. So for example, if the group read The 3 Little Pigs aloud together, they could then use these materials to retell the students what happened. And I think this would also be great if there was like 2 different stories going on at once, and then like 2 students read one story, 2 students read the other story, and then they retold the story to the opposite group so that they could like get an understanding of what happened in the story, and then they could like switch. I think this is really great for supporting reading comprehension. So as you can see, there's like lots of different things you can do with centers. It's really easy to differentiate the instruction. I know for the example I did in class, I did like sight words and sentences, and for the one group, they had like different sentences that had sight words in them that they had to like put in the correct order and make like a correct sentence, and then the other group had sentences already written out, and they just had to like identify the different sight words in the sentence and like color it in using a different color depending on the sight words. So like they were both working with like sight words and sentence practice, but one was like a little bit more difficult and one was a little easier. So it's definitely easy to differentiate. I think literacy centers are great because I feel like a lot of times that I see in classrooms, and even my own classroom that I'm in right now, is when the teacher pulls a group for guided reading, the students are just like working on a worksheet and they're all just working on the same worksheet, and it's usually like the same worksheet every day with like a different word or like a different like topic, but I think it just gets like really boring for the students and they like fly through it so quick, and then they just like free read, which it's great to do free read, but I feel like the time could be used to like better than what they're doing. So I think doing literacy centers, setting them up at the beginning of the year, is a great strategy to use.